Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the news from Saba Satellite Channel from Marib. Let's begin with the headlines.
President Al-Alimi meets U.S. ambassador and discusses reform, security, and Eastern developments.
Al-Arada calls for enhanced humanitarian response as Marib faces growing displacement crisis.
The floods sweep Morocco's Safi region after heavy rains, leaving at least 21 dead. Welcome back into the details. President Dr. Rashad Mohammed Al-Alimi, President of the Presidential Leadership Council, received U.S. Ambassador to Yemen Stephen Fagan today to discuss bilateral relations and ways to further strengthen cooperation between the two countries. The meeting reviewed recent domestic developments, including the situation in the Eastern Governorates, U.S. support for government reform efforts, and coordination in counterterrorism and deterring the Iran-backed Houthi militia and affiliated extremist groups.
President Al-Alimi praised the growing partnership with Washington, expressing appreciation for firm U.S. positions in support of the Yemeni state, including the designation of the Houthi militia as a foreign terrorist organization, efforts to counter arms and finance smuggling networks, political backing at the UN Security Council, and support for economic reforms. For his part, Ambassador Fagan reaffirmed Washington's steadfast support for Yemen's unity, stability, and territorial integrity, and its commitment to partnership in counterterrorism and alleviating the humanitarian suffering of the Yemeni people.
A responsible source at Yemen's presidential office has expressed strong concern over a decision issued by Presidential Leadership Council member and head of the Southern Transitional Council, Aidarus al-Zubaydi, to form a preparatory committee for a fatwa authority and link it to the Ministry of Endowments and Guidance. The source described the move as a unilateral measure that violates the Constitution, the law, and the governing references of the transitional phase, foremost the declaration of the transfer of power.
A legal source at the presidential office said linking religious fatwas to the Ministry of Endowments constitutes a constitutional and legal violations, noting that the ministry's mandate is executive and advisory and does not extend to establishing sovereign religious authorities.
The source warned that such actions threaten the unity of religious authority, risk politicizing religious rulings, and undermine social cohesion. He stressed that presidency's rejection of all unilateral actions outside the constitutional framework and warned against creating parallel entities that infringe on state sovereignty and institutional legitimacy.
Presidential Leadership Council member and Marib Governor Lieutenant General Sultan Al-Arada chaired a coordination meeting with the humanitarian partners in Marib governorates to discuss ways to strengthen cooperation and improve the humanitarian response amid current challenges.
The meeting reviewed obstacles facing humanitarian work in Marib, which hosts the largest concentration of internally displaced people in Yemen. As displacement continues, funding declines, and economic pressures, climate change, and natural disasters deep in humanitarian needs.
Al-Arada listened to briefings from UN agencies including OCHA and international and local organizations on projected needs for 2025, covering food, security, health, education, shelter, water and sanitation and protection. He praised the humanitarian partners for their efforts and reaffirmed the government's commitment to facilitating their work. Al-Arada stressed that Marib bears a burden beyond its capacity, hosting around 62% of Yemen's displaced population, calling on donors to scale up support, prioritize Marib, and shift toward recovery and sustainable development to strengthen resilience.
Yemen's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates, Dr. Shaya Zindani, held separate diplomatic meetings today focused on strengthening bilateral relations and international cooperation. Dr. Zindani met with the British ambassador to Yemen, Abda Sharif, to review the course of bilateral relations and ways to enhance cooperation across various fields. The talks also covered current developments, stressing the importance of continued communication and consultation to support security and stability and advance prospects for peace in Yemen. Ambassador Sharif reaffirmed the United Kingdom's commitment to strengthening relations with Yemen and supporting development and economic recovery efforts.
In a separate meeting, the foreign minister received the acting ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco to Yemen, Mohammed al-Shariki. On the occasion of the conclusion of his term of office, Dr. Zandani praised the Moroccan diplomats' efforts in strengthening brotherly relations and coordination between the two countries. For his part, al-Shariki reaffirmed Morocco's keenness to further enhance relations and cooperation with Yemen. Both meetings underscored the importance of sustained diplomatic engagement in support of shared interests and Yemen's stability.
Yemen participated today in the progress review meeting of the 2025 Global Refugee Forum, held in Geneva, with delegation headed by Yemen's permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, Ambassador Dr. Ali Mujawar. In Yemen's address, the delegation reaffirmed the country's commitment to the principles of the Global Compact on Refugees and its active engagement in implementing the pledges made during the 2023 Global Refugee Forum, despite the humanitarian and economic challenges facing the country.
The statement stressed the importance of sustained international support and translating commitment into concrete actions that strengthen community stability. Yemen also renewed its commitment to continued cooperation with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees and international partners. The delegation noted that the government is currently preparing a comprehensive implementation plan in coordination with donors and partners aimed at enhancing protection, supporting basic services, and improving conditions for refugees, internally displaced persons, and host communities.
Yemen took part in the 11th session of the Conference of States Parties to the UN Convention Against Corruption, COSP11, held in Doha, with a delegation headed by the chairperson of the Supreme National Authority for Combating Corruption, Judge Afrah Badwailan. In Yemen's address, Badwailan reaffirmed the government's commitment to advancing anti-corruption efforts, strengthening transparency and integrity, and expanding international cooperation in line with the UN Convention Against Corruption. She highlighted Yemen's ongoing institutional reforms, coordination mechanisms supported by UNDP, and recent accession to international networks on law enforcement cooperation and asset recovery.
These commitments come as the United Nations renewed warnings about the global consequences of corruption. In a message to the conference, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said corruption is not a victimless crime, warning that it undermines trust, fuels inequality, weakens institutions, and deprives communities of essential resources such as healthcare and education.
Corruption is not a victimless crime. It fuels conflicts, entrenches inequalities, and drains the resources needed to protect people and planet. Every dollar lost to economic crime is a dollar stolen from those striving for a better future. This conference is about shaping tomorrow's integrity, because in our rapidly evolving world, corruption is evolving too.
The Yemeni Network for Rights and Freedoms says it has documented 4,071 serious human rights violations in Hadramaut Governorate over recent days, describing them as acts that may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
In a report received by Saba news agency, the network said the violations were allegedly committed by forces affiliated with the Southern Transitional Council and included killings, injuries, summary executions of detainees, arbitrary arrests, enforced disappearances, forced displacement, looting of public and private property, and intimidation of civilians, particularly women and children.
The report documented 35 killings, 56 injuries, and the execution of 7 detainees, and the forced displacement of around 3,500 people, alongside raids on homes and businesses and the looting of weapons depots, raising serious security concerns. The network warned that the scale and pattern of violations represent a dangerous escalation and called for an independent international investigation, urgent protection for civilians, accountability for those responsible, and an immediate halt to all abuses.
Moroccan authorities say the death toll from severe flooding caused by heavy rainfall in the coastal Safi region overlooking the Atlantic Ocean has risen to at least 21 people. In a statement, local authorities said 32 injured people were rescued and taken to hospitals. Most have since been discharged after receiving treatment, while several others remain under medical observation.
Officials explained that intense rainfall lasting about an hour led to widespread flooding, submerging around 70 homes and shops, washing away 10 vehicles, and cutting off multiple roads in Safi city and surrounding areas. Emergency and civil protection teams continue search and rescue operations as authorities assess the damage and work to restore access to affected neighborhoods.
For continuous updates, stay with Saba Satellite Channel. Thank you for watching and have a good time.
Have a good time.